I don't know if you can tell from the fact that I haven't uploaded a video in 2 months, but I've recently been suffering from a major case of writer's block. It's not that I don't have any ideas for new videos, it's more that I have lots of ideas, but none of them are coherent enough to make a good video out of them. I'm hoping this is just a phase I'll get out of soon, but until that happens, I'm going to indulge in the time-honored tradition of pretentious artistes everywhere and do a video about how I can't come up with a decent video. To put it bluntly, why am I such an unprofessional sentient coffee cup? Why do I upload videos so infrequently and inconsistently? Why do I rely on static images instead of game footage? Why do I continue to use the most basic editing software available instead of something with a little more pizzazz? Now, these questions did get partly answered in some of my previous videos. For instance, in my Thanksgiving video, I pointed out that the whole still image thing is my way of paying homage to, i.e. ripping off, zero punctuation. But nothing I've said so far has really gotten to the heart of why I make videos the way I do, and not some other way. So recently, I laid down onto the therapy couch and subjected myself to a rigorous course of psychoanalysis, and the big takeaway from those sessions was this. I think my behavior primarily stems from fear, specifically a fear of professional YouTubers and what they represent for the future of this platform. I have, to put it mildly, mixed feelings about the professionalization of YouTube content, particularly for gaming-oriented YouTubers. The fact that content creators can make a living off a YouTube channel, which wasn't really feasible back when the site started a decade and a half ago, has allowed some channels to make more great content than they ever could have on an amateur basis. But on the other hand, the influence that money has on people's content, especially when they have no other source of income, has also given rise to some very unfortunate side effects. You might think that I'm just afraid of success, or not willing to put in the effort it would take to be a great YouTuber. But maybe, just maybe, it's not so much being afraid of success as it is being afraid of what you have to do in order to get it. Let's find out. No intro this time. This is a different kind of video. Let's just skip straight to the first topic. If you've been on the internet much for the last several years, you've probably heard of an advertising concept called influencer marketing. The basic idea is that, instead of showing standalone ads for their products, companies instead sponsor a content creator in return for a personalized advertisement that appears inside the person's content. A typical example would be the nifty, metal-plated wallets that Anthony Fantano has advertised in his popular music review show for several years now, or the meal delivery service that former Vine star Drew Gooden plugs on several of his videos, or a certain brand of in-ear headphones that it seems like everyone on Earth was being paid to push a few months ago. To be fair to this practice, there's technically nothing new about it. Celebrity endorsements have been exploited for advertising purposes for more than a century, and the same basic principle is at work there. Even the idea of combining the ad with the content being sponsored isn't new. This is the way all ads used to work on popular radio shows and in the early days of TV. When you heard an ad for, say, Grape Nuts on the Burns and Allen show, the actors on the show would be talking about how amazing grape nuts were and how you should go buy a box. They usually turned the plug into a little skit, exactly the same way a modern YouTuber like Drew Gooden does it. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that this form of advertising is terrible. The fact that these commercial messages are disguised as the actual content of the show is both manipulative and really irritating once you realize that you're being advertised to. It still works, since the plug makes people remember the name of the product, but in some ways this cross-pollination of content with advertising hurts both the show and the advertisement. Neither one is able to fully be itself. The invention of the commercial break back in the 1950s was actually a huge leap forward. For the first time, a show could tell a coherent story, with interruptions that merely paused the action, instead of drawing the characters into an unrelated advertisement. It also meant that ads actually had to be interesting, so that people would want to watch them instead of turning the volume down or changing the channel. The modern trend towards influencer marketing is actually taking us backwards, undoing a change that was better for everybody. It's so ironic to me that people constantly hype up the modern, high-tech nature of the internet, when in many ways the internet has been retreating from the cutting edge for more than a decade. YouTube, for instance, has gone from being a unique modern content platform to a shallow imitation of TV, and now it's butting into a niche that used to be occupied by radio, of all things. You may have noticed that people complain about ads on the internet all the time, but almost never about ads in magazines or newspapers. Partly this is because people don't really read anymore, but another reason is that your experience with ads in a magazine is far more under your control. If an ad interests you, you read it. If you think it's stupid or annoying, you flip past. Websites, by contrast, are full of gimmicks designed to force you to read ads, or to emotionally manipulate you into engaging with them. What really bothers me about influencer marketing isn't so much that influential people are abusing the trust other people place in them, although believe me, that's a problem, but more that it's such a regressive way to advertise things to people. The classic YouTube ads, which worked like a commercial break on TV, are so much more bearable than these constant insidious plugs that have wormed their way into my favorite channels. Of course, the old-fashioned ads do have their own problems. In particular, back in June of last year, YouTube, in their continued quest to irritate their users as much as possible, made 2 changes to the way mid-roll ads, that is to say ads that appear in the middle of YouTube videos, work. One of these changes was fairly straightforward, lowering the minimum duration for mid-roll ad eligibility from 10 minutes to 8. But the other one was downright Machiavellian, automatically placing mid-roll ads in all eligible videos unless the creator deliberately opted out. This was a transparently cynical move on YouTube's part, designed to ensure that practically all videos uploaded from then on would have at least twice as many ads in them as they used to. But what really made me sad was how few professional content creators did anything about it. I heard several YouTubers at the time say that, essentially, combing through their old videos to select which ones they wanted mid-roll ads on and which they didn't would just be too much work, so they were going to leave things as they were. Other content creators seemed pretty happy with the increased volume of ads. One thing I've noticed since this change happened is that a lot of the videos that I watch have more than the required minimum amount of mid-roll ads in them, meaning that the channel owner is actively looking for more slots to put ads in. What YouTube was betting on was that most professional content creators would either be too needy or too greedy to stand in the way of ad inflation, even if it would make the user experience of their audience worse. They were right on the money. And the user experience is worse. Videos on YouTube used to have a volume of ads that was arguably better than TV. There would be 2 ads each at the beginning and end of a video, and since lots of videos were shorter than your typical 11 to 13 minute TV time slot, it all more or less evened out. I think it has to be said, though, that even though a YouTube ad break had fewer ads in it, the fact that it would show up more frequently made it more annoying than TV. These days, though, you can easily face 2 ads at the beginning of a video, followed by another 2 ads within the first couple of minutes of content. I cannot begin to tell you how demoralizing it is to start watching a video and have an unwanted commercial intrude basically before the video has even started. YouTube sticks in mid-roll ads according to an algorithm, so it's possible that these instant interruptions are their fault. But I strongly suspect that in many cases, this is a decision made by the content creators. Either way, whether they're instigating this or just sitting by and letting it happen, these YouTubers are letting their fans down. Now I know what you're thinking at this point. Cinnamon, cinnamon, cinnamon. Nothing you've said so far is a good excuse not to be more professional about your content. Sure, people do some sleazy things on YouTube to make money, but you don't have to do those things. Even people who treat YouTube as a career can do it by selling merchandise or having a Patreon page. Or, yeah, maybe ads too, but ads that they put in carefully and responsibly, with consideration for their viewers. Why don't you try to emulate the example of the good guys? That's a fair point, but even the good guys have their weaknesses. Whether you make your money from sponsorships, ads, or Patreon, everybody who gets money from YouTube wants their channel to be as big as possible. More subscribers means more eyeballs on ads, more potential patrons, more people who might want to buy your lucrative merch. And this desire for more views, when it's allowed to grow unchecked, can lead to some pretty unattractive behavior. For instance, one aspect of internet culture that has probably given me more grief than any other over the past several years is the hot take, which is to say a video that gives someone's immediate response to something that just happened. The hot take is closely connected to the culture of Twitter, a social media platform that was basically designed for blurbs about breaking news. Personally, I think Twitter is a terrible way to communicate, and I absolutely hate hot takes. Hot takes are based far more on knee-jerk emotional reactions than they are on any actual facts. The hotter the take is, the less information you have about the subject you're discussing. Almost by definition, a hot take is an uninformed take. Nevertheless, this has become an immensely popular way for people to discuss things on the internet, and YouTube is by no means free from its influence. Professional YouTubers, even the ones whose behavior isn't actively exploitative of their fans, have a nasty habit of uploading a video whenever anything happens in the gaming industry. Nintendo gave a press conference? That calls for a hot take. A high-profile release got delayed a year? Time for a hot take on the big studio's release schedules. Someone leaked screenshots of a game that's not even close to being finished? Ooh, gotta talk about that. In fact, the hackiest of YouTubers are quite capable of making videos when absolutely nothing is happening about the things that aren't happening. They have titles like, "Let's predict what Nintendo will do in 2021," or "What's the future of the PS5?" I mean, hot takes are bad, but at least they're based on events that have actually occurred. There is nothing crazier than someone pontificating about what might happen, assuming that lots of other things happen first. Why do these content creators make videos about everything that has happened or might happen in their field? Simple. More videos means more views and more money. That's really what it comes down to. You can't seriously argue that the world is a better place because someone speculated about things that no one knows anything about for half an hour. It's pure fluff, and even the greatest of YouTubers are not immune to the temptation of cranking it out. This is the philosophy of content at any cost, put out not because the creator has any passion for it, but because their fans expect it and it makes money. These people are stuck in a constant, endless cycle of keeping up with the latest gaming news and throwing out opinions on every subject they can think of. It's a treadmill of topicality, where no matter how fast you go, you always end up in the same place with the same amount of work left to be done. And the worst thing about this is that critics, a class which includes game reviewers, have a unique obligation to resist the trend of having instant opinions on every subject that comes up. Critics develop their opinions by gathering as many facts as they can and reflecting on them, a process that takes time. They have a professional responsibility to discuss only the subjects they know well, and also to admit that their knowledge is limited. Pretending to be an expert on everything, including things that haven't even happened, can only make you look like a blowhard in the long run. You might say that if content creators choose to be involved in this rat race, that's their business. And it certainly is their business in more ways than one. But as a viewer of their content, it's disappointing to see them go for the easy money like this. It doesn't destroy the value of their channel, but it dilutes it, stretches it out until it's so thin that half their videos aren't worth watching and the other half are only barely worth it. It's true that these YouTubers make more videos than I do. They have more subscribers than me, and they're certainly a lot more financially successful. But there's one thing I can say that I think most of them can't, and that's that I've never uploaded a video that I wasn't proud of, or that didn't say things I thought were worth saying. As much as I wish I could have 100,000 subscribers, to me that sense of pride is worth a lot more. The basic ideas behind this video have been in my mind ever since I made that side note about YouTubers back in August of last year. But the one thing that really jolted me into finishing it was a video that Arlo recently uploaded called "Limited Releases Are Scary and Absurd and Bad." In the video, Arlo takes Nintendo to task for its decision to cut off the availability of some of its games in March of this year, a decision that can only be described as manipulative. It's a good video, and it has a lot of convincing arguments in it, but what I really appreciate about it is the fact that he chose to make a video on this subject at all. I've talked a lot about Arlo on this channel, probably too much, but if I dwell on the guy, it's because his story, to me, summarizes all the good and bad aspects of becoming a professional YouTuber. He is at the same time one of my favorite content creators on YouTube, and one of the people whose decisions annoy and upset me the most. And one of my biggest grievances against him is the ambivalent attitude he seems to have toward his best content. This is a guy who made a very convincing video about why the Hey Pikmin trailer looked terrible, then took it down on the grounds that it was too negative. He feels the need to apologize every time he criticizes something, even though he's a critic. And he spends far too much of his time gushing over Nintendo and hyping up their games, even though, as he's pointed out in many videos, Nintendo treats their customers pretty shoddily and makes a lot of bad antisocial decisions. Why does he do this? It's because of his need to placate his viewers, many of whom are young, die-hard Nintendo fans. And this is my final problem with professional YouTubers. They're beholden to their viewers to an unreasonable extent, and that puts them in a box that they rarely manage to claw out of. When you're a career YouTuber, your viewers are your lifeblood. Alienate or annoy too many of them, and you put your whole career on the chopping block. But sometimes a critic has to take an unpopular stance and risk alienating people just in order to tell the truth as he or she sees it. Not doing that, retreating into ambiguity and hiding your own opinions, means giving up your integrity and admitting that you'll say what your customers want you to say, which sometimes means saying nothing at all. I may be afraid of YouTube's success, but at least I'm not afraid of my own subscribers. I appreciate you guys, but I won't be pushed around, and because I do this for free, I don't have to. Yet despite all the strings Arlo has tying him down, despite the extreme reactions of his fans to even a hint of negativity, Despite the fact that 90% of his content is about Nintendo, and that he owes most of his success to covering their games, he was still willing to put out a serious video taking them to task for their mistakes. It was a bold move, and I admire him for it. It also gave me some interesting food for thought. If Arlo can call out a company that he's built his YouTube career on, even though he mostly likes and respects them, then there's no reason why I can't do the same for the people who make the content I consume. And I watch a lot of YouTube videos from content creators that I like and appreciate despite their mistakes. Which is precisely why, with this video, I'm calling them out and telling them that professionalism is no excuse for screwing over their viewers or compromising the unique vision that made their channels great in the first place. If Arlo can do it, I can do it. So let's get back to the original question that started this video. Why am I so unprofessional? Here's the best reason I can think of. Because professional YouTubers need unprofessional YouTubers just as much as we need them. The professionals are like the sails of the YouTube ship, driving it forward into the horizon, but we unprofessionals are like the rudder at the bottom that keeps the ship's course straight. The professionals put out consistent, high-quality content that keeps YouTube afloat, and we unprofessionals put out quirky, idiosyncratic content that does the unexpected and generates new, fresh ideas that are destined to become the professional content of the future. Remember, there would be no Game Grumps today if not for the unpaid, unprofessional Let's Players who paved the way for that channel's success. Yahtzee started off as just a guy with a blog, and in his early years The Escapist was not a big important site. Nearly every genre of YouTube content that's occupied by professionals now was started by small-time content creators who had nothing driving them forward but the joy of creating. The corporate masters of modern YouTube seem to think that small channels don't matter anymore, and a lot of professional YouTubers are going along with that attitude. But the truth is that small YouTubers are the backbone of this website. Nearly every comment on a video, even the comments with thousands of likes, are usually made by small-time YouTubers. And nobody gets big on YouTube without starting small. So if you have a small channel like me, or you're a total amateur like me, don't be ashamed of your lack of professionalism. Be proud instead. Proud of the freedom you have to make the content you want and to say what you really believe. Make your videos your way, and don't apologize to anyone for it. And if you do manage someday to turn your channel into a big success, don't forget about the rest of us little guys, okay?